From the hockeyfan.com studios, this is the Dump and Chase podcast. Stream the show on Western Reserve Radio, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. With your hosts, Sam Olmstead and Justin Irwin. The show starts now.
Daddy, what are you doing?
I don't know. Sam paid me $5 to read this. Show starts now.
Fans, and welcome to Season 5, Episode 3 of the Dump and Chase podcast. By day, I'm an inventory specialist, and by night, when I'm not fighting crime, I'm one half of this little party. The other half is usually the one committing the crimes. Justin, how has the week treated you?
Well, I work IT, so not very well.
As much as I'm sure everybody wants to hear about that, I think we should move on from that.
Really? You think that might be kind of boring?
Nah. All right. So thank you everyone for tuning in, as well as a big thank you to the official sponsor of the Dump and Chase podcast, the fine folks at Advanced Podiatry. Check out advancedpodiatry.com for office locations and appointment information, including same-day appointments, treatments offered, and services provided. Again, that's advancedpodiatry.com. So right away, we want to throw out some stick taps to the Phantom's office staff for their work with the pregame tailgate on Friday, as well as the trick-or-treating in the concourse for the kids. We kind of wondered how they could have topped last season, and I mean, quite frankly, they did that and then some.
Yeah, I mean, in this area, you're competing with other sports, getting fans riled up for the start of the season. You got to do what you got to do. And I think this year, seeing the food trucks on Friday night, it was pretty incredible.
Now, I won't name drop here, but I will say I did see a Phantom's general manager hopping outside to grab some coffee from one of those food trucks. So
Yeah, my understanding is you can't take it back in the building.
Yeah, that's what we heard.
And you also have to make your own copies of the line charts.
Yes.
Really? One of those things.
One person's going to hear this and laugh very hard at it, but
maybe two. So let's get into some Phantoms talk. Suspension clause and the injury bunny both came early this season, didn't have to wait for the holidays. And it's mostly been having an effect on the Phantoms D-core. Of course, defenseman Michael Fisher started the season on injured reserve. Hopefully he'll be back sooner than later. And then this past weekend, assistant captain Nick Williams was a scratch. We have no idea what's going on there, but again, we hope it's short term. Yeah, I mean, he was one of those people that we had seen just incredible improvement somewhat at the end of last season. Obviously, to start the season, preseason, he looked fantastic. So that was one of those things that caught us off guard. And yeah, hope he's back soon.
Yeah. And Andrew Strathman, he was, he was given a 1-game suspension after what during the game on Thursday was a 2-minute minor for kneeing. The minor call we believed was the right one. It wasn't egregious. It wasn't intentional. It was, I would say, more of just, a missed shoulder check that ended up going knee to knee. But, it is what it is. The league decided otherwise. He did serve that suspension in the Friday game, so he will be back for the Chicago series this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm one who normally errs on the side of kneeing is kind of usually an intentional move. You see guys make a bad decision and just throw their knee out because that's the only available option. That wasn't the case this time. So I think it was just he missed kind of. But yeah, 1 game. It was a little tacky, but we've seen worse suspensions. So
yeah. On the flip side of that coin, the offense had its struggles during the Fall Classic. They seemed to start to get their footing this past weekend. I wanted to point out real quick, through 4 games, there are 4 Phantoms that are averaging a point or game or better. Starting with Matthew Perkins, through 4 games, a goal and 5 assists. He's averaging a point and a half a game. Andrew Strathman through 3 games, goal and 3 assists. So he's at 1.3 points per game. Shane LeChance, the captain, 5 points in 4 games. So 1.25 points per game. And Justin Varner, 2 goals, 2 assists. Through the first 4 games, he's averaging a point a game. And Justin, somebody we're going to be the other Justin, we'll say here, we'll be referencing a handful of times here in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he's a guy I thought last season had his moments, and this season he's stepped it up.
And it was mentioned to me by a friend of the show that with Strathman's production, we may want to keep an eye on the Phantoms defenseman scoring records that were set last year by current Clarkson University Golden Knight Trey Taylor. Yeah, that's something we're definitely going to want to keep track of as the season goes through here, as he's already setting a pretty good pace for himself.
This would be an interesting case of using spreadsheets to create line charts. Wink, wink, nod, nod.
Oh, don't even get me started. I have enough spreadsheets as it is. I'm good for right now. All right, so with that, we'll take our first break. When we come back, we'll look back at this past weekend at the Covelli Center with the visiting Madison Capitals. You're listening to the Dump and Chase podcast on Western Reserve Radio.
Miss an episode of By All Means, and you could miss a lot.
I have the sound up, and I appreciate the guys that do the work now. But it is with great appreciation I see what the guys do, not only the announcers, but also the players. So we've had wonderful playoffs. I mean, single, double, triple overtime games. It's been fantastic.
By All Means, Tuesdays at 5, right here on Western Reserve Radio and streaming live on westernreserveradio.com.
Welcome back to the Dump and Chase podcast, which is brought to you by Advanced Podiatry. So this past weekend was the Phantoms home opener, and we saw the return of the Phantoms' final opponent of last season, the reigning Eastern Conference champions, the Madison Capitals. It's amazing what happened to that franchise once they were desuitered. Just special shampoo and a tiny comb, and look where they are now.
Yeah, you got to pick out the little nits, and yeah.
Yeah. So kicking it off with the game on Thursday, this was a 5-3 loss for the Phantoms. Right away, and again, this is a name that's going to come up a few times in the first period. Justin Varner just showing some serious hustle. He gets tripped up in the neutral zone, regains the puck, I believe almost tripped over another guy. Somehow managed to get the puck to Shane LeChance, who pots it for the Phantoms' first home goal of this season, giving them a 1-0 lead. Yeah, so real nice start for the Phantoms in the first period on Thursday. We got our first real good up-close look at Reese Lawback, this past summer's 7th-round pick of the San Jose Sharks. That kid's got a motor on him.
Yeah, he showed a little bit of this at the Fall Classic, but yeah, he gets stronger every game.
Yeah, it's I can't think of any other way to say it. The motor on that kid is just incredible. I mean, as far as the tail of the first period, I mean, the game could have gone south very early. You had Jacob Fowler just save after save, standing on his head side to side in the crease. The defense standing up when they need to stand up. This game could have gotten away from them early, but the, kind of the back end of the Phantoms lineup really held the fort.
Yeah. And I mean, you can only hold so long. These guys did an incredible job just not to let things get out of hand early. But then we got to the second period.
Yeah, almost a repeat of what we went through with the Waterloo game. Coming into the second period, we felt like momentum was on our side. We felt like things were going well. Madison picks up 2 quick goals, one of those on the power play to take the 2-1 lead. And then not long after that, we got treated to what very well we could call the goal of the weekend. There's another one later on Friday that might be this might be like a 1A, 1B situation. Matthew Perkins picks off a clearing attempt at the blue line in the Phantoms offensive zone. I mean, goes right to left in the slot. He's going right to left in the slot, fires against the grain, top shelf glove side for his first USHL goal. Now, when you go back and you look at the broadcast version of it, I mean, it's a good looking goal. The view we had from ice level, seeing the path of that puck from stick to net, was incredible.
I mean, yeah, it was a work of art. You don't see it any better than that.
Yeah, just moving to his left, firing back to the right side of the net, hitting that top corner. Just, I mean, from our vantage point, just an absolute thing of beauty. That goal ties the game at 2. Madison soon after picks up another power play goal, and kind of what became the story of the night for the Phantoms, just being unable to clear the front of the net of pucks and players, and just something that really, bit them in this game and kind of became the theme of the game of why it didn't go the way we hoped it would. So Madison goes into the second intermission with a 3-2 lead.
Yeah, it was a lot of a case of shooting yourself in the foot.
So going into the third period, Madison gets a 2-on-1 break. They get a goal there. They go up 4-2. The Phantoms get a late power play. They pulled Fowler for a 6-on-4, get a very nice goal from Justin Varner to pull the Phantoms back within 1 at 4-3. They pulled their goaltender again with about a minute left, got a few chances, weren't able to cash in on any of them. Madison picks up an empty net goal with 0.3 seconds left. They take the game 5-3. It was one of those games that, the score was close, but I mean, you can definitely look at why the Phantoms didn't win this game and why they probably weren't going to win this game.
Yeah, it was closer in the end than it should have been. We got our late chances, but other than that, Madison pretty much dictated that game, 2/3 of that game to us. So it was, one of those things we needed to adjust, and we get to Saturday.
Thursday, Friday, not Friday, Saturday.
I told you. Yeah. Yeah. It was, you want me to start over?
No.
Or?
Oh no, that's staying in.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, of course, you have key players missing. The Phantoms hadn't played a game in 18 days. They kind of had to get back up to speed. That took a little while for them to do that. Which was why they were more on their heels in the first period. They seemed to pick it up a little better in the second, but yeah, all in all, this was, Madison's game pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, you saw at the end of the game, glimpses. You hope that the next game we would do a lot better.
All right, so after the game, I got the chance to speak with Phantoms head coach Ryan Ward and asking him essentially, what were his feelings on, after all this time at, Cranberry and Deep Freeze, what it was like for him getting to coach his first game at the Covelli Center, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, it was great. I think this is a beautiful building. It can be one of the best buildings in the USHL, and playing at home is obviously special to us, and we want to make sure we give a better effort than we did tonight and moving forward.
Okay, so moving on to the game on Friday, this was a 4-3 win for Madison. The first period, this was just kind of a blah period for both teams. Energy was just low. Shots were 8-7. There were only 2 penalties in the period. The Phantoms getting the first power play and then losing it 28 seconds later when they sent a player to the box, basically negating that power play. Yeah, just a very blah first period.
Yeah, after the way the last game ended, you expected a lot more than what.
Yeah. You hope for a better start, but I mean, to be fair, Madison was just kind of skating through molasses as well.
I don't know if both teams left it all on the ice the night before, or they just were not ready for the puck drop. But yeah, it was slow.
All right, so we get into the second period, and in the first 11:41 of the period, Madison picks up 3 goals. They're up 3-0. Youngstown, the wheels were kind of falling off the wagon at this point. 5 penalties in the period, including a game misconduct for Hunter Price. That coming along with a 5-minute major for kneeing. We saw a bench minor for unsportsmanlike conduct. It just everybody kind of lost their composure there towards the end of the second period. It was, and part of it, and I don't want to be this person. I hate being this person. There were cases the Phantoms were not getting, calls from the referees that Madison was getting. But yeah, at the same time, I hate using that excuse. There was a couple instances of it, but I don't like using it as an excuse, but it was something that happened. and it just, after that was all said and done going into the second intermission, it was kind of the question, how were the Phantoms going to react to all of this? Was this, for a young team, was this going to be a learning moment?
Yeah, it was obviously a leadership issue. Tempers needed to be settled down. We needed to compose ourselves. Obviously, that did not happen. So obviously, the third period was going to be a test for this team.
Yeah. So then it begs the question, who or what was said, who said or what was said during that second intermission. The Phantoms come out for the third period, and this was a team we hadn't seen all season. The Phantoms absolutely came alive, and to quote you after the game, that it finally looks like they figured out the intensity it takes to play at this level and, and to be successful at this level.
Yeah. And it took them a little bit of the period. Maybe if they had figured it out 1 or 2 minutes earlier, this would have been a different game. It almost was. So, yeah. And again, this goes back to leadership, and we saw that on the ice.
Yeah. The captain, Shane LaChance, he picks up a power play goal, finally gets the Phantoms on the board. Now, following that, Madison would go on the power play, and the Phantoms would give up what would end up being the game-winning goal in this game. So yeah, at that point, Madison's up 4-1. Kenta Isagai, just incredible hustle, stripping the puck in the Phantoms offensive zone behind the net, kind of knocked the puck out to the slot, won the race to the slot, and was able to score on kind of a one-timer backhand. Just incredible individual effort by Kenta Isagai, which we're seeing more and more of, the later part of the preseason and then coming into the first 4 games of this season. Little more than 3 minutes left in the game. Shane LaChance again, and if Perkins' goal was 1A, this is 1B. LaChance, and I say this literally, standing on one side of the crease. His feet did not move. He's to the left of the goaltender, or actually to the goaltender's right. Just that 6'5" frame was able to reach the puck all the way across to the other side of the crease and tuck it in to bring the Phantoms back within 1. And again, this is something that this is something that happened 10 feet in front of us.
We were just laughing. I mean, it was like, holy moly.
But yeah, did not move. He wasn't moving his feet. He wasn't skating. He was standing still and just took the puck from one end of the crease, reached it to the other side, and tucked it in for a goal. And again, it goes back to the television view versus what our view was.
I mean, you see things like that. I mean, guys with the reach like Zdeno Chara can do stuff like, that was incredible.
But yeah, so the Phantoms pull back within a goal, and despite, quite honestly, a great effort there in the last minute, pulling win. They were getting shots, could just not get one to go in, could not tie the game in the last minute. Yeah, so the Phantoms take a 4-3 loss, but honestly, that after watching that third period was one of the better feelings I had coming out of a loss than, in recent history.
Yeah. I mean, if we can play like we did after that LaChance goal for the rest of the season, then, win or loss, we're going to be treated to great hockey.
Yeah. All right. So with that, we're going to take another break. On the flip side, we'll get our picks in for this week's edition of 4 Points. Don't go anywhere. This is the Dump and Chase podcast on Western Reserve Radio.
Advanced Podiatry has been making happy feet in the Mahoning Valley for 35 years. Our offices are located in Cortland, Champion, Austintown, Columbiana, and Howland. Our Howland office has relocated to 8601 East Market Street in Howland Corners. Advanced Podiatry offers sports medicine and treatment plans for all ages. You can also request an appointment online by visiting our website at advancedpodiatry.com. Advanced Podiatry, where surgery is always a last resort.
And we're back. Thanks for tuning in to the Dump and Chase podcast, brought to you by Advanced Podiatry. So for listeners new and old, 4 Points is where we break down the previous weekend into 4 categories: what we liked, what we didn't like, favorite moment, and the Dump and Chase podcast 3 stars of the week. So Justin, why don't you go ahead and kick this one off? I'm just kidding. Not yet. I'm not going to do that to you this early in the season. That was a joke.
Yeah.
Cue flop sweat.
I don't trust you.
I don't blame you. All right, so I will kick this off. So starting out with what we liked, for me, again, bringing up this name, the play of Justin Varner. Like you said, we saw flashes of, what he was capable of last season. By a lot of accounts, kind of a rough main camp. We really saw him start to really pick it up in preseason. And like I said, so far in the regular season, averaging a point a game. He's somebody who from last year to this year, he's taking his game up, to the next level. And it's somebody we really want to be keeping an eye out, for this season.
Yeah. And just overall a really great guy. So, you got to root for him. And, talking about guys returning, stepping the game up to the next level, Shane LaChance given the captaincy. What I liked this weekend was it was shown that was well earned. Yeah. Just his play overall and leading the charge there in the third period on Friday. Obviously, he has earned it.
Yeah. So as far as what I didn't like, I mean, the second period of the game on Friday, was a low point for the team this weekend. Composure lost, just kind of this, the Phantoms penalty box kind of turning into a clown car with everyone running in and everyone running out and everything else. But again, at the same, while I didn't really like how the second period trended, again, the phrase that, we can beat to death, was that period a teachable moment for the team? And, at least the good to come out of it is their play in the third period was apparently yes.
Yeah, it's a young team, a young coach. So, there will be growing pains. Yeah, as long as they learn from it and move on, it is what it is. What I didn't like, kind of the same old. Like I said, young coach, young team, still some of the same old Phantoms problems we've seen from past seasons. Just not seeming ready for the start. What's the word that was used? Feckless, I think, at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, we finally saw, what was sold to us on Friday going down the stretch. So hopefully that's what we'll see going forward. I'd like to see us get out of these ruts.
Yeah, and the game on Thursday, we kind of heard a lot of repeats of what we heard last season, shoot the puck. On Thursday, there was just a lot of, guys going out of their way to try to set each other up, just nobody really making the attempt to finish.
Drop passes at the blue line that nobody picks up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I realize that it will take some time. So, and what we saw Friday, they're late. I hope that's what we're seeing going forward.
All right, so for my favorite moment of the weekend, and bringing this back, I mentioned it earlier because I forgot I was bringing it up here, so I'm just going to be repeating myself. But yeah, being back in our seats, being back at the bottom of section 222, it's one thing to sit and watch these games, on Flow Sports or, even at the Fall Classic in seats that we're not typically, with a vantage point we're not typically used to. But just again, just the views that we had of the Matthew Perkins goal, the Shane LaChance goal, those are the experiences we get sitting in those seats. We don't get from watching these games on Hockey TV or Flow Sports or, being in the fourth row of seats, but yet still somehow 15 feet above the ice level.
Yeah.
At the Fall Classic and everything else, but actually being back in our seats and having the vantage point that we have. Yeah, there's nothing to us. There's nothing like it.
Yeah. And obviously mine favorite moment is quite similar. Just that drop of the puck there at the Covelli.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you've got 30 games and I guess not. How many games do we get this year?
I think 28 or 29, something like that.
Yeah. 28 to 30 games a season and a lot of memories.
Yeah.
And that's just the first one.
All right, so moving on, it is now time for the Dump and Chase podcast, 3 stars of the week, and starting off with a third star, that's right, his name again, Justin Varner, a goal and 2 assists on the weekend, and again, it begs the question, we talk about, kind of these guys that fly under the radar at the beginning and then have these breakout years, is that what is in store this year for Justin Varner?
Yeah, obviously he's a guy we're rooting for. And, this weekend we saw just something more than a spurt. I think we're seeing the start of consistency.
I mean, to me, we're seeing someone who last year was a role player who this year is stepping into more of a leadership role. And we're seeing that development, and we're seeing that maturity out of him. So again, he's somebody I really beg of people, to keep a closer eye on as this season goes along.
Yeah. And again, just a really great guy. So you always have to pull for them. I don't know what that means.
Second star, you.
Oh, okay. Second star, Matthew Perkins. 1 goal, 2 assists. We traded up to get him in the phase 2, second overall. Obviously showing he was worth the trade. That goal, just the way he shot against the grain, that was a pure snipe. We have words cannot say, just from our viewpoint, how beautiful it was when he picked that corner.
Yeah. Our friends over at Thunderstruck, the unofficial Lincoln Stars podcast, they had talked about on their show last week, the Phantoms trading Evan Werner to Omaha and what Youngstown got out of that trade. I had to go back and look it up. Garrett Wright last season was who we got out of that trade. There was also a phase 2 second round pick that the Phantoms ended up putting into a package that went to, I believe, Sioux Falls, that gave them the second overall pick in phase 2, with which they took Matthew Perkins. So yeah, right. I mean, just from what we've seen so far out of him, just money well spent. And of course, not really any surprise at all. First star of the weekend, Shane LaChance, 3 goals and an assist. And everything we've already said, it just boils down to, very simply, the captain is leading this team.
Yeah. And that's what you need at this point.
So congratulations to those 3 on making the Dump and Chase podcast 3 stars of the week. So that was the past. Let's move on to the future. When we come back, we'll look ahead to this weekend as the Phantoms head to the outskirts of the Windy City for a 2-game series with the Chicago Steel. This is the Dump and Chase podcast on Western Reserve Radio.
Join Stars photographer BA and Off-Ice official Gene Cotter for Thunderstruck, the unofficial Lincoln Stars podcast, where we talk with your favorite Lincoln Stars players, coaches, and alumni.
It was a great night, yeah. Beat them in their own rink just before the buzzer. It was something special for sure.
I don't want to call it a surprise because I knew that there was a great, rich history for hockey here in Lincoln, but I was really happy to see the fans come back in droves and be such a great supporter for us.
I think he's copying some NHLer he's looking up to, but I don't know. I think it's Dusty. I think a lot of guys think it's sick, though.
To let him in penalty minutes back before they handed out those little 10-minute wussy misconducts on everything.
Thunderstruck the podcast, all season long, right here on the Anchor app or wherever you find your favorite podcast.
And we're back right here on the Dump and Chase podcast, brought to you by Advanced Podiatry. So this weekend, the Phantoms will be traveling to Illinois for a 2-game series with the Chicago Steel. Last season, the Phantoms finally, for the first time in a while, had some success against Chicago, going 4-3-1 against the Steel. In all 4 games that the Phantoms won, held Chicago to 1 or less goals. Of course, Jacob Fowler shut them out once, almost did it again. Shut him out again in this preseason, but again, preseason doesn't count. Should be more than obvious by now. Again, my just distaste for people getting amped up over preseason results. Yeah, so Chicago coming into this weekend is 5-3. Of course, as per usual, they're first in the Eastern Conference. But they are the only USHL team to have played 8 games so far this season. Last weekend, Chicago split their series with the NTDP U17s, winning the game on Friday 8-3 and then losing Saturday 5-4. U17s have picked up a couple of wins here early in the season. We might want to keep a lookout on that. Typically, we're into December before they get their first win. They've already got 2 to start the season.
Yeah, well, I've seen a couple seasons where they start out with wins. Those were against us, but that's another story.
Yeah. Now, like last season, something we did here, usually I would just go on rattling off a ton of stats that really anybody can go on to the USHL website and look at. So instead of doing that, we're going to keep it more player-centric. We decided for these weekend previews, as far as the Phantoms opponents, we're going to look at a few of the players from the opposing team
just kind of players to watch out for, maybe players we're familiar with from last season. So the first one we're going to talk about, Steel forward Jaden Perron. So far in 8 games this season, 2 goals, 11 assists. He's somebody who had some luck against the Phantoms last year, but, had a big season last year. Someone, looking to step up this season for Chicago.
Yeah. Last year, I think he was kind of a role player. You had bigger names on the team. Obviously, he chose the games against Youngstown to shine, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's going to be a bigger player this season. And we are going to have to definitely keep an eye on him, maybe assign more than one man to cover him.
I mean, at least one thing, naming all these players. Am I correct in saying that Chicago is Fantilli-less this season, or
maybe in spirit?
I know Adam Fantilli's gone. Is Luca Fantilli gone as well? I really haven't looked that hard at their roster.
I mean, I can't imagine one being on the roster without the other. I thought they were attached.
Well, according to many fans around the league, Luca's better, so...
I wish I'd have heard that.
I wish I would have, too. But the funny thing was, usually he was hearing it while he was sitting in the penalty box, so... let's see here. I am not... Nope, they appear to have gotten rid of all their Fantillis.
Oh, bother.
Okay, yeah, so anyways, moving on... Again, another one, maybe not so much on the score sheet, just defensive play that kind of gave the Phantoms fits for last year. Defenseman Jake Livanovich.
I think last year, the Phantoms managed to play him pretty well, shut him down. I mean, he played a pretty big role on their team, but not in the games against Youngstown. Hopefully that continues, but I'm pretty sure he's coming back bigger and stronger this season.
Livanovich, 8 games against the Phantoms last year, only 1 goal and 1 assist. Subtract that from his season totals versus the rest of the league. 43 points in 53 games. So 45 points in 53 games. Only 2 points against the Phantoms in 8 games. Still can make his presence known defensively. I guess had to play more of a defensive game against the Phantoms than an offensive one he played the rest of the season. But again, the kid is legit. And again, this will be somebody to look out for. As far as in net, Christian Mans, who we got to see a little bit last season, currently this season, a 3.05 goals against average, which is kind of par for the course for Chicago goalies. When you're putting up a ton of goals, you don't need a goaltender, with a sub 2.5 goals against average. He was 2-1 against the Phantoms last season. Andy's committed to a college I'd never heard of until I was figuring all this stuff out. Augustana University in, I believe, South Dakota.
Yeah, I've heard of them. Again, I'm going to just leave it at that. I've heard of them. They're legit, but Mons was a guy last season I thought was kind of overrated. I think he proved me wrong. The first game of the Fall Classic that he played, from what I saw, he was outstanding. I think only maybe Whitehead and Lincoln was better on the weekend.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's the start of a new season, and I'm sure we'll see him at some point, probably this weekend.
Chicago carrying 2 goaltenders on the roster. We might end up seeing both of them, the other one being Jack Stark. So, so the games this Friday, the 21st, and Saturday, the 22nd, puck drop for both of those games is 8:05 local time. Those games will be available on Flow Sports and the free audio stream on the Mixer app. So, and, we talk about, and of course, just unfortunate as it's been to start the season. Jacob Fowler's been in a little bit of a funk to start the season. The defense in front of him hasn't done him many favors, but I'm sure there's a few goals there he would like back. I would imagine this will be a series, he's geared up for. Just, it's, when we saw it last season, when Jacob's in net versus Chicago, he raises his game to a whole nother level.
Yeah, obviously, he needs something to build off of. And last season's near shutout.
Yeah.
The one where 8 seconds left in the game,
13 seconds left, something like that. Yeah,
we saw that as a big motivator for him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think he wants that next one in regular season, one that counts. So I expect he'll be ready.
Yeah. All right, so with that, we're going to take our last break. When we come back, we'll wrap up this episode and look ahead to next week's show. You're listening to the Dump and Chase podcast on Western Reserve Radio. And we're back, and that'll do it for this show. Big thanks to our wonderful sponsors, Advanced Podiatry. Again, check out advancedpodiatry.com for more information. And a big thanks to all of you tuning in this week on Western Reserve Radio, either on westernreserveradio.com, the Live 365 or TuneIn apps, or on Facebook or Twitter, as well as YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can check us out on social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. All of these links can be found on our Linktree page, of which that link can be found in the description of however you are listening to this episode. So next week, we'll be back to recap the Chicago series, as well to look ahead to the Phantoms' first trip to Plymouth this season to take on the NTDP U18s. And again, this was kind of another surprise from last season, was the success that Youngstown had against the National Team Development Program. So definitely looking forward to that continuing this year.
Yeah, it's always been an interesting dynamic, the Phantoms and the NTDP, especially, when we travel up to Plymouth, sometimes things get a little crazy. So, last year's team, last year's U17s, we had a pretty easy time with. I don't think they're going to be quite as soft this year.
Yeah.
U18s.
And just a note, and we'll get into this more on next week's show, but all of the games that the Phantoms will be playing against the U18s this season will be taking place up in Plymouth, so we will not see the under-18 squad down at the Cavelli Center this year. But again, we'll get into more of that next week. So Justin, before we go, any parting words of wisdom?
Yeah, I mean, people seemed a little, disgruntled that the big hype that we were sold going into this season, we so far have only seen little bits of, I guess, the cliche, the season is a marathon, not a sprint. So like I said, if, we see the game we saw after LaChance scored that goal on Friday going forward, we are going to see a lot of really exciting hockey this season. So, it's a little early in the season to, start really getting into, doom and gloom. So
no, it's way too early for that.
Yeah. So anything we say that, sounded, like we are negative against this team, that's not the case.
No.
We have extremely high expectations here.
Yes. All right, so with all of that, for Justin Irwin, I'm Sam Olmstead. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in, and we will talk with you all next week. Bye now.